Hey everybody, welcome to Wrestling with Cruises, where I wrestle with cruise questions so that you don't have to. I'm Alex Abrahantes, and I'm super pumped to be here this week and be able to have a great conversation with the gentleman that I had a pleasure of meeting on one of the inaugural sailings for Norwegian. We're going to get into that. Again, if this is the first time that you watch, this is actually the second edition. I did an edition a couple weeks ago with Robbie O'Malley. We had a great time talking, so I was really excited to bring you another one. And then moving forward, we'll have a variety of guests each and every week here on Wrestling with Cruises. So this is just an opportunity to chat about cruises, to have a great conversation with great people who thoroughly enjoy cruising as I do. I'm a cruise addict, and you know what? I'm not afraid to admit that. So let's go ahead and jump into this great conversation. So I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman on the Encore. So when the Encore came out, Norwegian reached out to a group of us and said, hey, would you like to come on the ship and experience it and share it with your followers? And of course, we all jumped at the chance to say yes, because what an amazing experience it is to be able to hop aboard a brand new ship and see everything, experience everything, and of course, be able to share it with all of you, which is always so much fun. So I had a chance to meet Matt, and when I was putting the show together, I said, boy, I got to get Matt on here because boy, I love talking to people who have cruised more than I have and who have more cruise experience, because I always learn so much, and it's just so much fun to be able to just kind of chew the fat on all things cruising, and we all learn so much from each other. So let me go ahead and bring the man in here himself. Here we go. Bear with me as I bring him on in. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hey Alex, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks so much. So Matt's handle is Cruise Line Matt, and if you can't figure it out, you can pretty much tell what he loves. He loves cruises just like I do. Matt, I love how you say on social media you're an accountant by day, but cruise addict at heart, I guess. Is that it?
So I always say I'm an accountant by day, a cruise addict by choice.
Ah, okay, very good. Well, hey, that's great. That's an awesome tagline. Well, fantastic. Well, listen, I wanted to chat with you because I know that you've been cruising a lot. Now, how many cruises have you been on?
So I've been on 52 to date. Obviously, that number should be a lot higher, but we've had a little thing going on here the last few months.
Yeah, exactly. This whole pandemic has robbed us of the ability to jump on a ship and continue to have those numbers climb. So, yeah, that's a little bit disappointing, but I know we'll be back to cruising here in the near future. So, you've obviously cruised a lot. What got you into cruising?
So my parents always kind of went on maybe one or two a year when I was younger, and they generally never brought us along. Actually, never brought us along. And then when I was 22, they asked me to if I wanted to tag along with them, and I said sure, I'll give it a shot. And honestly, from the second I stepped on board, I have been hooked ever since.
What was your first cruise?
The Caribbean Princess. It was actually on its inaugural season, so
Wow,
I was kind of spoiled with a brand new ship for my first go round. Um, but yeah, I had a blast.
that's very cool. So, where did it go and how long was it?
It was a 7 day out of Fort Lauderdale. It did Eastern Caribbean, St. Thomas, St. Martin, and the Princess's private island, Princess Cay.
Very cool. So, after that experience, how quickly did you jump aboard another one?
It was probably about 5 or 6 months later. I was still in college at the time, and me and a bunch of my fraternity brothers were looking for a getaway during winter break. And I was like, hey, I just went on this cruise. It was a really cool time. I know there's some other kinds that might cater to our demographic a little bit more, so let's give it a shot. And we went on a 5 night carnival cruise out of New Orleans, and we had an absolute awesome time.
That's awesome. So, what is it that you love so much about cruising?
So it's kind of funny. One of the things I'm going to say is I don't know what the right word is, but it's not what I definitely get out of cruising now. But I originally loved the disconnecting.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure.
I loved 7 days, throw that phone in the safe and just not a care in the world. Obviously, things have changed a little bit with having a social media presence in cruising, but that was one of the things that first drew me. I've also always loved being on the water. I grew up, my parents had a boat. We were always on Long Island Sound or in the Connecticut River. So it's just something that I love, and yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, so speaking of the water, I wanted to play this video really quickly because there is something so therapeutic and just so relaxing about being able to just be at sea and just really enjoy the open water, enjoy the atmosphere. And it's so weird, I guess, just to disconnect because we're always so busy and we're always so connected now. And then when you're out in the ocean,
Hmm.
you get that feeling of kind of peace and serenity. And I always say it's just a great way to just kind of reconnect and refocus. So that's part of the reason why I love cruising so much.
Yeah, and add in great food and an abundance of drinks, and I'm sold.
Very good. So, speaking of food, what are some of your favorite restaurants on the ship, and maybe what are some of your favorite meals?
So my all-time favorite venue when it comes to dining is Food Republic. I
Very good.
know, I know. On you being a Norwegian guy, you definitely have probably eaten there a time or two. But that is by far my favorite. I love that you can have, the plates are kind of shareable. So if
Hmm.
you do go with a small group, you can just kind of order a whole bunch of everything and get a whole bunch of different flavors and tastes going on. They also have probably one of my top five drinks um, in there, and of course the name is drawing a blank right now. It'll come back to me.
So, in addition to Food Republic, what are some of your other favorite restaurants on board the ship?
So specifically Norwegian, teppanyaki is probably one of my all-time favorites.
That's always fun,
Again, it's great for group dining.
right?
Um, And of course, there's Cagney's. If you're in the mood for a steak, you kind of can't go wrong. And when we were actually on Encore, I dined at Los Lobos for the first time, and I absolutely loved it.
Los
Um,
Lobos is great. So
there we
yeah,
go.
it's Los Lobos is the Mexican restaurant, which is a relatively newer concept on board of Norwegian ships. And let me tell you, they knocked it out of that park. Was that guacamole not some of the best guacamole that you've had anywhere?
Definitely is delicious. And that's coming from a guy who's like not a real guacamole enthusiast. It was delicious.
Oh, I loved it. I think they just did an amazing job, and it's table side, and you can get it however you want it, and they just kind of create it for you, and then just everything else there is just so good. So Los Lobos, ironically enough, is one of my favorite restaurants. You mentioned Cagney's. Cagney's has always been on the top of my list, and I tell people it's not just I'm just not saying Cagney's is my favorite restaurant on a cruise ship. Cagney's is one of my favorite restaurants, hands down, period. I just love it so much. And Los Lobos is so good for Mexican food that it's just one of those restaurants that I know that every time I get an opportunity to go on a ship that has it, I'm definitely going to be eating there. Now,
Yeah,
what
so
other restaurants
I'll
have you tried on? I know we were on the Encore together. That's how we met. We went to the inaugural. What other restaurants did you get a chance to go to? Because for those who weren't part of the inaugural, we kind of got divvied up. There was a big group of us, and we had some restaurants already pre-selected that we can go to. So we didn't get to experience everything. So I'm curious what restaurants you were able to go to on the inaugural.
So the day that we got on board, we went to American Diner for lunch,
Oh, great.
and it was I'm going to say a big upgrade from Margaritaville.
Yeah.
Margaritaville had some good drinks, but their food I always felt like it was a little bit lacking. It wasn't something I sought out to do, but I definitely would go back to American Diner again. And then the first night we were in Food Republic,
Hmm.
and the second night we were in Los Lobos, like I mentioned. So it was kind of a good combination for me because, like I said, Food Republic is my favorite restaurant at sea, and I also got to try something new with Los Lobos. So it was kind of like the best of both worlds. So I was very happy when those dining reservations came out.
Yeah, it's always exciting when you get to see. And now, was this your first inaugural, or how many inaugurals have you been on?
So I also was on Bliss back in, what was that, May of 2018?
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I
We
was
must have maybe missed each other, or maybe I recall you from there. We might have met there, and then we saw each other again on Encore.
so I actually at the time I wasn't through the influencer side of it. I was somebody's plus one, so that's probably why.
Nice. So, what restaurants did you go to on Bliss? Do you remember?
So it's kind of an interesting story. Um, this might add a couple minutes to your show here, but
That's quite all right.
so we went. Sorry, I say we. The person I was going with ended up not going.
Oh,
So I was a travel agent's plus one, and I ended up having the cabin to myself.
nice.
Um, the downside to that was their dining was assigned with like their travel agency group, and
Oh,
it was going to be in the main dining room both nights. And so of course, like I didn't really know these people, and not that I would have a problem sitting with people I don't know, but I was like not overly thrilled with the main dining room. So
right.
I made an attempt the first night to just show up at Food Republic, and at first they were a little bit hesitant to like let me in, and they're like, oh, you're just by yourself? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, well, why don't you can sit at the bar over here if that's all right with you? And I'm like, that is perfectly fine.
There you go.
So I kind of snuck my way in, if you will. And since it worked the first night, I decided to try it again the second night. Um, and I probably could have tried it with a different restaurant, but I knew they had that little bar area, and it just kind of worked out perfect. So I went again.
That's fantastic. So you went the second night to Food Republic again.
Yep.
That's awesome. Very cool. Now, how did you like the Bliss compared to the Encore?
Um, I mean, there's obviously tons of similarities. Obviously, some of the dining, certain things are swapped in and out. Um, the layout is very, very similar, so I don't know that there's a ton to compare there. One thing that I absolutely loved on Encore that I didn't expect to love was the Galaxy Pavilion.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not a big like video game like kind of into that thing, but I had a blast when we were in there. I think it was the first night. Um, I just had so much fun, and it just kind of caught me by surprise that I enjoyed it as much as I did. I are we missing a little bit with Spice H2O back there? Maybe, but I think I think people could enjoy either space. So yeah, I think they're very similar. Not to jump ahead, but like the differences from Escape to Encore were kind of a bigger, I guess, gap I would say
Mm-hmm.
than
Yeah.
from Bliss to Encore. Um, and some things that I loved that they changed, and some things that maybe I didn't 100% agree with, but doesn't really ruin my cruise experience any.
So you were telling me that your favorite ship is the Encore, or excuse me, Escape.
Yeah, so when we were talking earlier, I said there was a couple reasons, and I would get into it now. So the first being the first time I sailed on the Escape, I sailed in the Haven.
Ah,
Um,
that'll do
it
it to you.
I sort of have to preface with that because well, in some sense, you're paying for the added experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did get a super cheap upsell at the last minute, which is the only reason why I did it. I wouldn't be paying the going rates to be in the Haven.
So you
Um,
were booked initially in another cabin, and then you got the ability to upgrade to the Haven.
yes,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
The
So
upgrade program. That's great.
this was before all the bidding.
Oh, okay, got it.
So this was back in like 2016. They used to have an upsell department, and the phone number for the upsell department was kind of always like this like secret piece of information. Like if you
Get to know
had
somebody who
it,
knew
like
somebody.
kind of. I mean, if you searched enough on the internet, you probably could find it. But it was everyone kind of held it a little bit closely because they knew if they started spreading it, those upsells would come and go a lot quicker. So yeah, I think it was like 10 days out from sailing. We did an upsell like $500 a person, so $1,000 total to go
Wow.
from a balcony into the Haven. So it was kind of a no-brainer at that price.
Yes, definitely. So tell
Um,
me,
so
tell me
uh,
about your Haven experience.
it was me and my wife's anniversary trip. So it was literally like the perfect cruise to have it on. We were in a spa, uh, Haven Spa balcony.
Hmm.
So we weren't our cabin wasn't in the Haven proper. It was one deck below, but we had access to the Haven. We our cards would get us in and out. We had access to the lounge and to the restaurant and the sun deck and all that. But our cabin just wasn't located directly in it. It was just one deck up, and we were right around the corner from the spa. I actually fell in love with the spa on this trip.
Yeah, I bet.
Again, something I never expected to really enjoy. But pretty much every day, my wife would go to the gym, I'd go to the spa, and
Nice.
and if I had a hangover from the night before, it was like the perfect cure.
Well, that
Um,
thermal spa is out of this world, especially with everything that they keep adding. Like they have the heated seats that you can just
mhm.
lay out on. They have the salt room. I personally liked a
Yep.
lot.
Yeah, I kind of got a routine going on that sailing, and then the second time I sailed on the Escape, I also got a spa pass. I wasn't in the Haven, but I just got a spa pass. And I kind of had a routine where I would go into the sauna, I'd go into the salt room, and then I would go lay on the loungers and usually throw in the therapy pool in there
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
It's awesome getting into kind of a cruise routine, isn't it? I miss it. I used to have
Hmm.
the same type of deal. I'd wake up, go to the gym, eat breakfast at the buffet, get back, figure out a workout later in, go to like bingo. But I had like this everyday kind of routine that was just so much fun and relaxing.
Hmm.
Do you find
Definitely.
yourself
Yeah.
when you cruise, do you kind of get into that same kind of mode?
I'd say generally, although it depends, who I'm sailing with. So sometimes I sail with my wife or my whole family. I have two kids. If I'm sailing solo, if I'm sailing with a group, it really depends on kind of how I structure my days. But I think in either case, there probably is a routine. It's probably just a different routine.
Gotcha. Very good. So yeah, the Haven, I always tell everybody, once you go Haven, you can't go back. And if you don't know what we're talking about, the Haven is really kind of the exclusive part of the ship that a lot of the Norwegian ships have. And it's really like having a luxury cruise experience on board of a bigger ship. There's only about, 200 cabins or so, or maybe
I think
less.
that's roughly.
Yeah, it's out of this world experience. You have your own restaurant, you have a concierge, you have a butler. Once you get a taste of that, it's kind of hard to go back because it's just you can just hang out in the Haven the entire time or go back and forth between the other areas, and then you get the ability when you go to shows to get special seats, part of the Haven. Now, speaking of shows, are there any shows or entertainment on board that really stick out to you?
So I was previewing the questions you had for me, and I saw this one, and I was kind of wondering how I would answer it. I'm definitely not a show guy. I will go occasionally, like if I'm with my wife and she wants to go see something, I will go. I did on Encore. I did go see Choir of Man, and I enjoyed it. And for me to say that, I'd say somebody who likes going to shows would absolutely love it. I just have a hard time like going to dinner, having a bunch of drinks in me, and going and sitting. It tends to lead to me falling asleep.
Okay.
So I kind of try to keep on the move, especially after dinner. Um, it's just what I prefer. With that said, on probably one of the other reasons why I love the Escape is Howl at the Moon, the dueling piano bar.
Sure.
Uh, Probably one of my favorite venues at sea. We had I had my group cruise back in 2018 for the Facebook group I run, and that was my first group cruise that I ran, and we were in there every night that it was open, and we had just a crazy time.
Oh, that's super cool. So, what other activities do you enjoy? Are you the type of person that tries to do as much as possible, or do you find a balance, or do you just like to hang out and do your own thing and then enjoy the ports?
So I used to try to do a lot more than I do now. I used to try to join all the pool activities and the games and stuff that they have, but I don't know. It might sound a little bit, I guess, jaded, if you will, but I just gotten sick of them a little bit. And they're fun to watch still, but you won't catch me running up there to partake in them anymore. I figure I'll let like the newbies, go take all the fun. But no, I kind of just like to, hang out, sit by a bar, have a drink. I love meeting new people. That's probably one of my favorite things on cruises, is meeting new people.
Hmm.
Um, so, I could, if I meet a few people at a bar, I could probably just sit there for a couple hours, just, chit-chatting and, learning about them. And it's just what I love to do. It's also one thing that I like. I know on Norwegian we don't have this, but on the other cruise lines they have the set dining times.
Hmm.
And I know there are people that like swear them off, like I don't want to sit with strangers at dinner, blah blah. But I absolutely love it. Um, Very rarely have I ever had a super awkward experience. I'd say the majority of the times it has been a great experience.
That's super cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It kind of forces you to meet people that you wouldn't perhaps meet otherwise, right?
Correct.
Very cool. Well, let's talk about itineraries because I'm really curious to hear what your favorite itinerary is. Being in over 50 cruises, you probably have more than one, right?
I do, but you'd probably be surprised at how many of those are Bahamas sailings,
Really?
or shorter Caribbean sailings. And I'll tell you why. When I cruise solo, it's very hard for me to get away for a longer period of time. So I tend to do a lot of the 3 and 4 day itineraries, and obviously they can't go very far.
Right.
With that said, I have gone lots of other places. I've been to Alaska, which is probably one of the views are just absolutely breathtaking, and probably one of the more unique sailings that I've done.
Hmm.
Um, but it's not something I would do like over and over and over again. So I've been once. I would probably go again at some point in life. Maybe see different things. Maybe explore a little bit more within Alaska. Because when we went out of Seattle, so we only had the port stops. We didn't have any time in Alaska before or after. So that's one that definitely sticks out. Um, One of my all-time favorite Caribbean ports is Grand Turk, and it's weird because there's not really like one thing that I can like pinpoint, like, oh, that's why I love it. It's just like the overall like atmosphere, and the water is just absolutely like perfectly blue. Um, I don't know if you've seen any of my drone shots from there, but the water is just like it just looks perfect.
That's great.
Um, but so that's probably one of the Caribbean ports that's a little bit to me. Um, and I would be remiss if I did not mention Nassau. And I know the viewers right now are probably shaking their heads like, "What is he talking about?" As probably are you. But I've been to Nassau 29 times.
Wow.
Um, I still get off the ship every time, and I still have a blast when I get off the ship every time.
What do you do in
So,
Nassau? That's maybe give us
so
some
one.
good inside information here.
So I'm gonna tell you a lot of what I like to do is based around drinking a bit. So if you're not a big drinker, this may not appeal to you as much. But I have I guess it's a bar crawl of sorts. I've kind of named it the Cruise Life Mat Bar Crawl.
There you go.
Um, you can pull bars in, pull bars out that you don't want to hit up, but there's a lot of cool bars in Nassau, and especially if you're traveling with a group, it can be super fun to just have one or two drinks at each bar all along the way, and we usually finish up at Senior Frogs. And the one thing I always say is never show up to Senior Frogs sober, because you will not like it.
Okay.
Um, but no, it's always a great like end of the day cap after you've kind of been hitting all the other bars, and you're usually in prime Senior Frog shape by that point. But no, there's a lot of other stuff to do in Nassau besides drinking. There are a lot of beautiful beaches, although
Yep.
I've never been to them. Pretty much the only beach I've been to in Nassau is Junkanoo, which is pretty much within walking distance from the port area. Um, it's not the most pristine beach, but you can walk there, and it's free, and you can get great views of the ships in port from there. So all those things considered, it's a pretty good option. There's a few other things that I would suggest doing, maybe if you had like kids. Ardastra Gardens it's kind of like a mini zoo. They're most known for their pink flamingos,
Hmm.
and they're kind of just openly walking throughout the zoo, and you'll be walking along, and all of a sudden there's a flock of flamingos just walking right alongside you. So that's one cool thing. And then a couple visits ago, I went to the Queen's Staircase. So I obviously had been to Nassau a lot of times before, and I had never gone. And my wife was like, "We need to do something new here." She was
There you
just
go.
like, I'm sick of doing the same thing." So she was like, "Let's go to the Queen's Staircase. Like the pictures look beautiful. Like let's go check it out." And it was a pretty easy walk to get there, although we did get a little bit lost. If we had found our way there directly, it would have been a super simple walk. So yeah, those are a few things. But people who say like, "Oh, I don't get off the ship anymore," like I don't know. It's fine if that's what you want to do. That's what's great about cruising. You do you, right?
Exactly.
Um, but I still will get off the ship every time in Nassau.
That's very cool. Yeah, I think there's always something to figure out and something new to discover, which is pretty cool. There's some all-inclusive resorts. I discovered one a couple years back, and you could just take a cab ride, and then all of a sudden you're on this resort, this private beach, and you pay for the day, and you can just enjoy being there.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of good things to do in Nassau. Agree with you on Alaska. I have yet to go. Every year I'm like, oh, this is going to be the year that I go, and then something pops up. So that's definitely on my bucket list. I hear nothing but great things about Alaska from everyone who's
Yeah,
gone, just like I heard nothing but great things about the Mediterranean. And then when I went, I absolutely can vouch for that. No doubt about that. The last major cruise I went on was the Scotland, Ireland, United Kingdom 11
hmm
day. And that was, I mean, out of this world. If you ever have an opportunity, I can't say enough great things about going over there and seeing it. It is just something that you'll never forget. It was truly awesome. So I say definitely do that.
Nice.
So speaking of cruises, what do you have planned next? I know things are getting canceled, but as of right now, September 15th is the possible return. Do you have anything planned?
Yeah, I do. So obviously, I've had a lot canceled. I actually, speaking of Europe cruises, I've never been to Europe, and I
Wow.
picked 2020 as the year that I was going to go twice.
Oh boy.
Uh, and of course, so one was to the Mediterranean and one was to the Baltics, and of course, both have been canceled.
Oh
Um,
man.
just, I guess, a bad year to pick, but anyways, I do have I think five or six currently booked between the end of this year and next year. I have one on September 19th on Royal Caribbean. I'm not overly optimistic about that happening, but I'm fingers crossed. And if it goes on, I will be there. Um, I've been joking for the last 3 months that I should just pack my bags and just go wait at the port.
Why
So
not?
so I'm ready when they're ready.
I'm with you. Well, very cool. Well, Matt, I want to thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I really, truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences with us. I think this is great, and I can't wait to hop on a ship again. I'm sure as you probably can, and then I'm hoping that we'll be able to cross paths here. Once things start rocking and rolling again, and we'll be able to go and enjoy the cruise life one more time.
Definitely, definitely. And thanks again for having me on. I love talking ship, so anytime you want to chat, hit me up.
Great. Thanks so much. And I'm putting your information right now on the screen. So this is where you can follow Matt. And he's got some great
Perfect.
photos. So make sure to follow him on Instagram. He does an amazing job of showing some incredible places. And you will definitely be inspired to travel once we're finally able to. So, Matt, thanks again. Look forward to keeping in touch. And again, hopefully I'll see you in the open seas soon enough.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to catching up with you. We'll be back next week here on Wrestling with Cruises. LA Foodie himself is going to be on here, and he's got some great stories. Obviously, he's going to be talking a lot about the incredible food that you'll be able to enjoy back on the ships once we're back to sailing. So thanks again, everybody. Look forward to seeing all of you next week. Have a great week. Stay safe, healthy, and I'll see you guys later.